am hoping you all can see this, and I trust that Camilla will step in if at any point you can't hear me or see me, because she's going to be the one that is moderating this. But as I was saying, I am particularly passionate about this topic simply because we are all going to be transitioning throughout our entire life, and our sexual life and relationships are all impacted through these changes and transitions. I have spent a lot of time teaching and talking about this topic, but it became really relevant as we made our way through a global pandemic. So let me start off and take you back to the beginning of my own family story. This is newly married when I got married in 2006, and my husband and I had a lot of time, a lot of energy to devote to each other. We didn't have a lot of obligations. We could oftentimes on the weekends sleep in. We could have the kind of sex we wanted when we wanted to have it. There weren't a lot of barriers presenting at this point in our life. We honestly thought, especially getting into our marriage, that this is how sex would be, and that we didn't really anticipate any roadblocks that would come our way until I had my first baby. And pregnancy was hard. My body hurt. I was really tired. I had all of the discomfort that comes with pregnancy. And I remember us having a distinct conversation that said, you know, our sex life will pick back up once that baby gets here. Well, as you can imagine, the baby got here and we didn't have a lot more energy. We had less sleep, less energy, less time. We were adapting and getting into new roles as parents, figuring out who we were as partners now that we had a new baby on the scene. And then we kept thinking like, okay, we'll get back to our groove. We'll get back to our groove, thinking that we need to get back to how it was when we were first married, and continued to have these conversations. But if you remember in 2008, which is when my son was born, there was also a recession. I went back to work. My husband started school. We had some surgeries. We had different health issues that presented, and we just never really got back on top of things. And I've learned over this time, I've now been married for 15 years. I've been a therapist for 15 years, that my story is similar to many other people's, because what happened is then we had a second baby and we had a third baby, and life just kept happening. We never got on top of life. It just kept happening. So I'm going to focus on knowing that change is going to happen. I want to focus on resilience today, because that's the part of our sexual story that we can control through all of the change. So I recently surveyed my Instagram audience and asked them what were the biggest changes they've experienced that have impacted their sexual relationship. And these were the top 5 issues that came up for people: kids, moving and relocating, faith transition, change in work and work location. So a lot of us now are working from home, or we had to work from home, or we got settled in working from home and had to go back to the office. And issues around health, emotional health, mental health, physical health. And I want to hit on the kids, because it wasn't just babies or little kids, because that can be one aspect of having kids that poses a challenge, is when they're little and trying to find time, because you're so tired and they have high needs and they often can't take care of themselves. But then when they become teenagers, a lot of people say, but now they can hear us, and it feels more uncomfortable because we share walls. And so I put kids as a whole, because that was the number one thing that disrupted people's sex life. So I'd like to do an anonymous survey tonight, and I want to kind of get a temperature of the room and see what changes, transitions, and stresses that you've had in the past year. So when you see this survey pop up, I want you to just think about the last year. Let me initiate the poll. Okay, so you should see the poll right now. I want you to go ahead and answer. And again, know that this is completely anonymous. Your answers won't be identified. People will just see how you've answered. Okay, we are starting to get people participating and doing their votes. We've had about half of you that have voted. Okay, we're almost there. Okay. All right, I'm going to, Camilla, I don't know, Camilla, can you unmute yourself and let me know if you can see the results so that I can see if people are seeing what I'm seeing?
Or yes, I can see the results.
You can see the results, fantastic. Okay, so as you're seeing people's results come in, there is not a single issue that hasn't been checked. In all of us, we have all experienced a significant change. And what's important to understand is this is based on an evidence-based stress scale called the Holmes Raw Life Stress Inventory. And normally this is a 40-question survey, but I wanted to give people a slice to just see how many different changes, transitions, and stressors we are having in our life. And many of us have experienced one or more of these things, and that is significant. Changes in stress impact our emotional health, our mental health, and our physical health, and our sexual health is an extension of our overall health. So if there's something I want to normalize tonight is to understand that when we are stressed, when we are going through transition, it shouldn't be that our sex life should be fantastic in spite of all of this. It inevitably will be impacted, which is where sexual resilience really comes in to play. So hopefully, again, the number one stressor is the pandemic. How people have moved through this is going to be different for everybody and the impact, but we have all been impacted by this in one way or another. All right. So there are three types of change that we often face in our life. We have predictable change and transitions like the seasons, the upcoming school year, daylight savings time, birthdays. Like those are anticipated changes that we have. And then we have change that isn't predictable. None of us could have predicted that we were going to be landing on a pandemic. Illness, death, changes to our physical ability, relocation, job loss, or maybe getting an opportunity or a job that we didn't see. And then we have predictably unpredictable, where we anticipate the change, we know a change is coming, but we don't anticipate how much it will impact us. Things that are in this category are aging, the birth of a new child, new medication, stopping medication, our children growing up, our parents aging, and needing more care. So these are all things that we anticipate and predict, but we are oftentimes not able to predict how much of an impact it will have on our life. So what we know is that change is going to be inevitable. And while we have control over some of life's changes, there are many things that we really don't have control over. And this is where resilience comes in. Resilience is our ability to adapt to stressful situations or crises. And the more resilient people are, the more they're able to roll with the punches. Developing resilience is what we have control over. That is what we have control amidst all of the change that goes on in our life. And the great thing about resilience is it's a skill like any other skill, and we can learn it, and it requires practice and persistence and something that we can develop no matter how old we are or where we have been in our life. So why am I having you watch a repeated looping video of palm trees in a hurricane?